Ram Ram KD Bhai.
Ram Ram. Good to see you.
Oh, so I'm happiest person in the world when you're in front of me. I wish it was in person, but ever since I first heard that Hanuman Chalisa, and since then, you're the Pied Piper for me. So I'm following.
I'd be careful with that, I might be going places you don't want to go.
maybe.
Actually, you're going places that I would be afraid to go. Going to Ukraine and doing what the foundation is doing is amazing. Really.
Yeah. Look, I don't really see it as a foundation. I see it as Prasad and Maharaji's service. I feel like I'm serving food in Kenchi, or something like that.
Yeah, I remember there was a story about Maharaji saying something about, we was talking about selfless service. And, people use these words, I'm doing selfless service. They think that just helping people is selfless service. And that's not necessarily true, because there's always some motivation. Selfless service means motivation less, desire less action. So one time, Tiwari was there at Kenchi with Maharaji, and he said, "You're a Brahmin." He says to Tiwari, "So tell me, what does Krishna teach in the Gita?" So of course Tiwari knew it was a setup, So he gave the simple answer, which is what most people say, nishkam karma. You miserable Brahmins misleading the people. He said, only God can do nishkam karma.
Right.
That is such a deep statement, isn't it? I mean, think about it. It doesn't mean there's some God up in the sky who's the only one who can push buttons and do things. It means that when we really are in that place, when we at one with God, then everything we do is desireless action, is real seva. And he says, the other thing he said, it's only by God's grace that you can perform good acts that help people and help yourself and help others. It's like Ramana Maharshi said that asking the ego or the mind to kill the mind is like asking the thief to be the policeman. There'll be a lot of investigation, but no arrest will ever be made. So it's a question of recognizing that if we're able to do good things in the world, it's already by His grace. I mean, even the idea to do it is His grace. Many years ago, I asked Siddhima, Maharaji used to look at us and he'd say, I have the keys to the mind. He said, I could turn your minds against me. And we go, no, Baba, don't do that. He used to tease us, said, I'll transfer ho jayega, So I said, Maharaji says he has the keys to the mind. So to me, that means that I am where he wants me to be, where he puts me every moment.
Right.
So then, what's the deal? Is it all grace? In other words, is it all His doing or God's doing? Or is my effort required? She said, Krishna Das, it's all grace. But you have to act like it isn't. That's really big time. I mean, we so easily try to to make things in our minds, to think we know something, think we're doing things the right way, but to up-level things and say, oh, it's all one, we're all part of one family, and then you go kick the cat, or beat the dog, These are things that have to be actually experienced. And that only happens by grace. But because we don't know that, we have to make our effort. And our efforts do good actions and to be compassionate and kind and become good human beings. That's what purifies our heart, along with the repetition of the name.
And for me, I just feel that you must act. What Siddhima said there is like Krishna in the Gita, or that message of doing. Like I always say to people, we put go before the Dharma. Like go, like just do it. Do your practice. Serve people. Love all feed. Like do the action, and through that acting, you ripen. You can actually find it.
Every thought, everything we do is a karma, and creates karma. If we want to experience real happiness and real love, and be free of suffering, then our actions have to plant those seeds. If we just lay around and it's all grace, it doesn't matter, that's not going to do it. We have to be active in a good way. And Maharaji, 24 hours a day, every day, all he did was help people. I mean, we would be sitting with him and he'd go like this. We'd be sitting, we're talking, and all of a sudden he goes like that. Just that. And then he saw we were looking and he said, the mind can go 1,000,000 miles in the blink of an eye. And he just went somewhere to do something for somebody because he was aware. It's impossible to understand, to really get it. How someone could be aware of the past, the future, and everything that's happening to every being at every moment. It's just, so all we can do is move forward in the best way we can, given what we have in this life, and the situations that arise. There's so much stuff.
JD, by Maharaj, just some other words that I always cling to. He said, I've read somewhere, that nobody should get away from the ashram without being fed, or that whoever comes to the ashram should be fed.
He fed everybody. Yeah. Well, it was it's obvious that it was one of the ways he distributed pran and blessings to people. Yeah, he said you can't talk to a hungry person about God. You have to feed them first. This is the world where you have to eat to live. And if you're not eating, you can't think about anything else, He used to say, we used to line up, he used to feed us in the courtyard, across the courtyard from where he was sitting, all the Westerners. And he'd say, feed them till, give them more till they get sick, and then call the doctor. It was just, it was one time, one of the devotees from Haldwani that supplied ghee to the temple. He came with a friend of his who had another guru. And so they come to Maharaji, and Maharaji looks at the guy's friend and said, why did you come? At your guru's place, there's kirtan, bhajan, so many good things. Here, it's just ow, cow, jow. Ow, cow, jow. Come, eat, go. How great is that? That's the highest in the most simple form. It's amazing.
And I think it's something that everybody can practice in their own homes, not necessarily need to go to Ukraine border to do it, or in an ashram. You can just do it with your neighbors or people around you close by to feed them.
If you're not doing it with your neighbors and your family, then you're not doing it. Don't wait for big explosions to try to serve. The spiritual practice is something that is a way of transforming the way we see the world, the way we live in the world every day. Who's your enemy, and why? We have to examine why it is that we have likes and dislikes. God doesn't have likes and dislikes. There's only one of us. You don't like your foot, it would be bad to your foot or your knee. No, why? It's all part of one body. So, but these are things that really, one has to percolate with. One has to let ripen our hearts.
What about electricity? Like I don't know, but I feel from Maharaji's energy, Maharaji's love, very an electric type feeling. A lot of that bhav is very difficult to explain, but I feel very energetic from it. I don't feel it's a lazy energy.
Wonderful.
Was
That's
he
great.
in movement? Was Maharaji in constant movement? Was he? How was he?
He was constantly moving. He was constantly doing things. I mean, underneath the blanket, he was always doing mudras and things, all kinds of things that we didn't see. But Dada, Siddhima, and some of the very old devotees, they knew what was going on, you know. And he didn't sleep, you know. It was, you know. But, you know, it's not, all the great saints say the same thing. They talk about compassion and kindness and treating others well and treating others the way you want to be treated. You know, that's really the key. If we could do that, if we could just be, you know, treat other people the way we would like to be treated, the world would be a different place immediately. But it's just greed and you know, it's the it's the despair underlying everything that forces people to keep getting more stuff and using other people and manipulating things for their own benefit, because they have this despair of not being able to get enough, not to be satisfied. And so we're constantly creating more things. I just read something in the papers today about the paint companies, manufacturers, and real estate agents have been lobbying to deny benefits to all these young children who were seriously damaged from lead paint. For the last 30 years, they've been fighting to not help the people that they've. It's all about money and power. It's so nobody cares about anybody. It's just so crazy out there. You know, I remember last time I was in Hong Kong, I took the tram. There's this tram that goes like straight up the mountain, and then you look down. I could not believe what I was seeing. There was this billions, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of skyscrapers. And you could see them tearing down the ones that were like just a little bit old and then rebuilding even higher. And then there were boats in the harbor and helicopters and planes and cars and people. And I looked at this and I said, how did this happen? How did this happen? You know, what is this? All you have to do is eat, sleep, drink, shit, and a couple of other things, and you can do that under a tree. How did this happen that people gathered like this to be, you know, and it's that they can't find happiness. They can't find peace. Right. They just need, the desire can never be satisfied. So they keep getting more and more and more and more. And we're destroying the universe, the world, because of that.
I read something, Katie, by just a few days ago, that more than 90% of the biomass of the planet now is humans and farm animals. All wildlife has disappeared. All nature is like a minuscule amount now. We've basically killed most of the natural world, living natural world.
Yeah, what people do to animals. I remember once I was at a dinner with some really wonderful Tibetan lamas who grew up, you know, they grew up eating meat because in their culture, there's no vegetables in Tibet, you know. So the head lama looks at me and he says, "You're not eating?" I said, "No, this is He said, but you don't have any, I just had some vegetables on my plate, just a little bit. He said, no. I said, I'm vegetarian. He goes, oh, thank you. Thank you. He wasn't, but he appreciated.
Yeah. So I guess in a place where they live, like where it's not able to grow vegetables or live in that way, they speak about non-violence all day long, right? Dalai Lama talks about non-violence and compassion.
For sure.
I think it's one of his. Bob, I met Bob Thurman when I was in New York. Unfortunately, we couldn't meet, but I had a lovely meeting with him, and he said that one of Dalai Lama's, His Holiness's main missions of his life now is to promote the idea of non-violence around the world, and help to draw that out from the Indian traditions, all of the various traditions, as a very central thing. And I think non-violence, just like what you were talking about, Nishkam Karma Yoga, it's actually not possible. The perfect state, the true non-violence is God. So at least we can move slowly towards that, and ripen towards being less harmful, and sharing that with the world. I guess Maharaji said, what did he say? Jesus and Gandhi, be like Gandhi in Christ. That's a great statement. What do you take that meaning to be? Be like Gandhi in Christ.
Well, he told Ram Dass, you should be like Gandhi. He said his life was his sadhana. His life was his practice. So Ram Dass took that, very, very deeply. And he understood that it's your whole life that's your practice. There's not like a little part of you that's spiritual and a little part of you that's something else. It's how you live and how you are in the world. Maharaji basically, he knew that most people these days can't concentrate. They're too distracted. They can't reach these more subtle states of consciousness because we're all over the place. And he said, the higher states of consciousness, the more subtle states of consciousness can't be brought about by the use of your personal will.
Right.
So what you do is you serve others and you do nama japa and that kind of thing. And that will purify the heart, and then the real thing will arrive, will show up at some point. And he said, for those in the world, these days, serving others, developing the idea of service and seva is the most important thing. So, yeah. But it's almost alien idea to most people. I mean, it's understandable. We grow up in a world where you're programmed right from day one that everything you need is outside of you, and if you don't get it, you'll be unhappy, and if you don't have this, so you grow up believing that, actually, and seeing the world that way. It's very hard to unwind all that stuff. So I really think it's only through seva and the repetition of the name, which he said, Ram Nam Kan se sapura ho jate, from going on repeating these names of God, everything is accomplished, everything is made full. But that doesn't mean you stay home and do it in your room. You have to be with people. So it's part of it, just you make it a part of your life.
Sharing it with people, right? I think you said as well that, until you started sharing kirtan and chanting Ram Nam with people, that was when more transformation started to happen.
Well, I don't know about transformation, but when he left the body, I was very destroyed and I wasn't doing anything to help myself. And then I had this experience where I was struck by like a thunderbolt. And I understood that if I did not chant with people, I would never be able to clean out the dark corners and shadows in my own heart. So it was definitely, it wasn't stay alone in your room and chant all day. It was get out there and engage with people and sing with people. And that's the way my heart would be saved, so to speak. It took a while to get with the program, I'll tell you, because I wasn't really, I went, what? But, you know, once you know something like that, when you really know something in your heart, you can pretend you don't know, but you know. So there's only so much fooling you can do.
As soon as I heard you chant the Hanuman Chalisa all those years ago, I immediately was connected with the heart. That was heart family. Like it's very difficult for me to describe that feeling that you have your blood family and you're very connected to children and to parents and everybody. This is an immediate heart connection that I felt that was Maharaji, that was coming through you.
Yeah, it's definitely him. Yeah.
So I remember when we met first in London many years ago, and I immediately wanted to go to Kenchi. That was where I was running towards, and it was winter. And I came up to you and I said, I'm going to Kenchi. And you said, why the hell are you going there? Come to Rishikesh. It's frozen in Kenchi. Everything's closed. And we had this beautiful time in Rishikesh with Ma just before she started to go more quiet. And
good.
And she said this, you know, Maharaji will never let you go. You know, she gave me this Maharaji blanket and, you know, gave us so much love. My young son was running around the ashram and everybody was sitting in cross-legged before Ma taking darshan and chanting. And this young baby was running around on the floor. And I went to grab him and she stopped me. And she said, let him play. He's Govinda, Bal Govinda, Bal Gopal. He's Bal Gopal. She saw it in everyone like that. You know, even when we tried to separate spirituality and life, it was all spirituality. It was all life.
Yeah. Yeah, she was extraordinary. She put up with us for many, many years. The Westerners bringing all their crazy neurotic shit, you know, she just would go, everything's okay. Remember one time I was sitting with her. We were just sitting quietly for quite some time, and all of a sudden she turned to me and she said, Krishna Das, Maharaji can do anything for anyone at any time. But, okay. Wow. She was totally immersed in him. It was amazing, you know. She saw him as God. She realized him as God. She experienced him as God. She saved me so many times, it's ridiculous. And of course, she just said, you know, Maharaji does everything. And Maharaj used to say, Hanuman does everything. And Hanuman says, Ram does everything. And Ram just keeps quiet, you know.
Well, that energy of service that Hanuman represents, and which you saw with Maharaji constantly serving and moving and traveling. Sure. I sometimes think that, you know, Hanuman didn't go and, you know, study medicine before he went and lifted. He moved the mat, like what Jesus says, if you have faith, you can move mountains. And Hanuman actually moves the mountains and has that ability to do it just purely on faith. And if I don't know what to do, I'm just going to go and serve, and, you know, I'll pick up the mountain and take it there. What about, did you see that similarity between Maharaji and his energy and service?
Oh, of course. But, you know, when you say just Hanuman had faith, it's not just that he had faith. He also had realization. Faith, real faith is almost like realization itself, because it's based on what your own experience. It's not based on what somebody else says or what you hope might be true. It's based on reality. And so, of course, Hanuman has that.
Thank you so much.
Great talking to you, and I really appreciate everything you're doing. And, you know, we always have your, the Godharmic, we're always promoting that on our sites. So
I really appreciate it. And I can't even say. There's no thank you. Well, what can I say to you? You just tell me what to do left and right, and I'll go. Thank you for all of the support for Go Dharmic.
Much love. See you soon.
Ram.
Take good care. Ramana.